Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
For multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass.
We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Operator Podcast. Thanks for sticking with us, where we talk to other operators, find out what you're doing in life, what they're doing in life. And today, we have a very special guest, a no-shit operator. Remi Adeleke is a former Navy SEAL, and that's one of the many things that he's done in his life. It's kind of just in the middle. He got in there, became an operator, got out of there, became an operator the other way. One of my favorite sayings is wherever you are, be there. And he has, I'm not even going to tell a story, but Remi, welcome to the Operator Podcast.
What's up, Rob? Thank you so much for having me on, brother. It's always awesome to connect with you.
Awesome seeing you, brother. So we're going to get into the SEAL stuff and the upbringing stuff, but you know what I want to talk about, if it's okay with you? Yeah, because you're in movies, you're in TV, you're a writer, the ultimate male. That there's a show that's on called Special Forces World's Toughest Test.
Yeah.
And can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so I want to call it therapy in a nutshell. We grabbed 16 celebrities and we just put them through the paces, running through a very, very watered down selection course. But the purpose of it is not to turn them into special forces operators, because we know that's not going to happen at the end of the day. The purpose of it is to put them through their paces so that they can really discover who they are, discover their struggles and their battles that they faced over the years, and begin the steps towards overcoming them. It's not about getting to the end for every single one of them. One thing I tell them when someone quits or VWs, that's what we call it. I said, listen, did you get what you needed to get when you came to this course? Did you get out of it what you needed to get? And if they say yes, then I say, you passed this course, because that's what it's about. So it's a very intense course. The producers allow us to take the gloves off. It's not a situation where the producers are like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. They're gone. They disappear. It's just us 4DS and the recruits, and we're running the show. So that's Special Forces World's Toughest Test.
I bring that up because I did see it advertised. It was great marketing. I didn't know what to expect because it's a 10-day course, and I didn't know what can they possibly do in 10 days. And it's just, are they going to be just kind of, patty caking these celebrities? My wife and I started watching it a couple days ago. We finished the entire first season in less than 2 days. Because I'm serious, and I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not associated with it, but I'm telling my listeners, you got to watch Special Forces. I'm telling you, I watched the first episode, and it's it got my attention. It's really good. From then on, edge of my seat, if not standing up and pacing. Some of the drills you guys came up with, it was totally getting them out of their comfort zone. You had some great athletes there, but all of a sudden get them up on a cliff, and now you have to cross on this rope. What was that like? And one more thing, I'm not talking about the show because we're going to get into leadership later. What I love that you did was a good leader never asks anyone to do anything they won't do themselves. And you always demonstrated it first. You show here's how it's done. Now do it.
Yeah, and that's important to me. And it was important to us. It's one thing to just tell somebody, hey, go run up that cliff or go run up that tower or go do X, Y, and Z. It's another thing to demonstrate it and show them, listen, I'm telling you to do it because I've done it and I know that you can do it because I know you're right. We know the right and left limits. So that was another reason why I signed up for the show, because again, it wasn't one of those reality TV shows where we're just standing by hosting and telling everybody what to do or critiquing people, right? Because that's so easy to do. We see so many reality TV shows like that where you got this person who's high and mighty and just critiquing everything that a contestant does. And we don't even call them contestants, recruits. It's a show where we have to we live just like that. So I'm not sure if you saw a couple clips of our quarters, but we're literally right across the parade square from them. So we're waking up covered in dirt and sand, and we're not getting the best food, and we're not getting a lot of sleep. Actually, we get less sleep than them because even after we finish the day, we still have to do mirror rooms, we still have to do debriefs, we still have to do all kinds of other meetings and the prayer room, and that goes for hours. So we're getting like 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and again, that's why I like the show, is because we're having to kind of live the experience with them. We're not going back to 5-star hotels and then coming back. So yeah.
But I like that you have celebrities and athletes that are really good at what they do. I mean, you got Dwight Howard, who's in the NBA, one of the best ever. Mike Piazza, and dudes that were really good at what they did, but they've never been faced with this. Like, you're done with this, and then by the way, you're getting up at 11, wet and sandy, and you don't have AC, and you're all living in the same quarters. And I'm not going to ruin the show, but like, you sleep together, you shower together, you shit together. Watching Dwight Howard sit in that small shitter, just kind of smiling at everybody. But then what I love that you guys did is you could tell the mind games, because these are physical people, but the mind games where you purposely would make them, like, give them a situation they can't solve and then help someone else solve it and watch how they interact and how they get pissed at each other. That's like team building.
Yeah, dude. It was all a test. And that's one thing that we tried to tell them, and everything that we were doing, especially in the assessment, because we would have somebody pass something or barely pass something, but we would tell them that they failed. And not because they failed, but just to see how they would react to that. And everything that we were doing was building towards the end. I don't want to give
away. I'm not I'm not ruining it at all. I already know the ending. Like I said, we watched it in 2 days, and I'm just bringing this up because my wife would call me from work and she's like, hey, I'm watching episode 5 now on the iPad. So I'll get home for lunch and we'll watch 6 together. It's like, I mean, it's literally like, and I thought, I did some of that training, but I'm watching like, my God, these, like the rappelling off the cliff. It's like, did you guys train them before that, or just like, this is your first go and lean back?
No, everything, they didn't know what they were going to even do next. It was kind of like how, kind of like buds, when we're buds, we don't know don't really know what the schedule is or Hell Week. We don't know what's going to happen next. It's just, go to the next evolution. And that's the way it was. So they had no training. There were some, like, for example, for there was an evolution that we were going to do, but then it got canceled. So it was like a weapons drill type situation. And what we did was we went out there and we kind of showed them how to manipulate the safety and some things like that, and told them, hey, be prepared for what's to come the next day. But outside of that, they weren't prepared for what was going to come next. So it's like pay attention to the instructions, because if you don't pay attention to the instructions, it can mean the difference between life and death. And there were people who got seriously injured.
Oh yeah,
seriously injured.
The one that you demonstrated, and then you had I think the Mighty Mooch do, was on the cliff when you got. I remember the first time, and it's at Bud's. Just getting on a rappel rope, and you got to just sit back in your harness. Like, I trust it now, but the first time it's like, I kind of want to hold on to the rope. And then you have them just lean back, and then have a student belay them. You're just coming, like, that's what hooked me. I'm like, this show is legit. Like, this is really, really good. And those celebrities were putting the fuck out. Like,
Mel B.
Yeah. Oh, she was awesome.
There were some people who were surprised, but she was definitely one of them. She was an absolute monster. She was a monster.
She seemed like it.
She dislocated her knee, and I'm not sure.
Yep.
So, and like there was somebody screaming, come over, somebody better come over. So I went over and she was like, put it back in, put it back in. And I'm like, put what back in? She was like, my knee.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was tough. I'm sitting that one out.
Yeah. And I was a medic, so
yeah.
I didn't know if she was BSing me or what, but I went up to her, felt it, and her knee was dislocated, like legitimately dislocated. And I shifted it back in place. And I expected her to say, oh, can I get a breakdown? And she just got up and kept on moving. And I was like, all right, this girl is.
Yeah. That's hard right there. Did you, how much research did you as the cadre, these instructors, how much research did you do on the celebrities?
None. We don't know who's going to be a part of it until we get them off the train and see who's who. So
that's awesome.
And again, that's why I liked about the show. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't made up. It was like
it was legit.
Things on the fly, just like they have to figure out things on the fly. We have to get to learn them and know them as the days are passing, and we're not getting the answers to the test, and that keeps us on our toes. And the good thing about that, it helps us to really to not judge them based off of their past or what they did or what they didn't do. It just really helps us to kind of dive into who they are in front of us as the days are passing.
I love the debrief, and and they do their interviews, and you get to know them not as celebrities but as people. And it's and the realization, like they have families, the scene with the letters you write home. But there was one with Jamie Lynn, and she's like, well, it was tough growing up because my sister got famous. It's like, well, who's your sister? Well, Britney Spears. Like, oh yeah, she was famous. Shit. But that was what else really got me too was you can see the attitude from some of these people where what reminded me of SEAL training. Okay, there was one dude that I think lasted half a day, and he was at chef that came in as like, yeah, being a chef's like being a Navy SEAL. And my wife looked at me, is like, and I said, honey, that's the loudmouth that when you get to buds and you hear someone yapping, they're going to be the first one to quit. But the thing is, don't think someone's better than you. Just because he quit doesn't mean you're not good enough to make it. And that guy was like, I'm like, he's not going to last a day.
Yeah, that was, and it, not just what he said, but even what he did when he got out the water, and he came up to me and he was trying to be buddy to get a dab or whatever. I hated to see him go because I really felt like there was more he could have done. I just know he talked himself out of it.
He did, and that's something else you could see too is once you get the idea of quitting in your mind, it's really hard to get rid of it. And you see it. The editing was so good. The camera work was so good. And just to see the exhaustion and and then the demonstration too. Again, I'm not ruining the show, but when you drive the Humvee into the water and you got to wait to fill it up, and then you got to wait, 20 seconds, the diver's going to squeeze you, and then you got to get out. And then they said Remi's gonna demonstrate, but he's gonna hold his breath for 90 seconds. I'm like, now he's just showing off.
It was actually 2 minutes, but for insurance reasons, they couldn't publicize 90 seconds because I wasn't supposed to go past 2 minutes because of insurance. Because if I died, then it wouldn't have been insured. But that was fun. But I say that you brought up something I want to kind of touch on.
Sure.
And it has to do with human nature. When we were, I know when I was in Buds, I'm sure it was the same when you were in Buds. As soon as you could tell the guy who was going to quit, even whether he was going to quit, hours later or days later, that twinkle in their eye, that the way that they ran and didn't move with a purpose, just all of those things. And it was the same way with the show. We were able to tell every single person that was on the verge of quitting when they were going to quit that day, all of us called it. Like as soon as we saw them that morning or later in the day, and we saw that the way they were moving, we saw them just staring off that 1,000-yard stare, but they're still completing the task and still doing stuff. We already know, hey, this person's going to go.
Yeah, he's done. And you can sort of see people, they start to forward project excuses.
Yeah.
Well, I got this. I in Buds, I had a guy. It's like, well, I'm married and I got kids. I'm like, a lot of dudes do. Okay, but you're gonna leave soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that show's so awesome because, like you guys were doing stuff. I'm serious. It was like, this is legit. Like, you don't screw this up because you get hurt really bad.
Throwing people out of helicopters, man. We're having them climb in the helicopters, a gas chain, all that stuff. That was real CS, man.
Well, yeah, the first drill was the backwards dive. You just got to trust yourself. It's like, man, they're going to do this. And I guarantee they've never done this before.
Yeah.
No, great. That's a great show, though. It's highly recommended. Special Forces, World's Toughest Test. And I don't know if you're allowed to say it, but I'm just going to say I hope there's another season coming out. That's all I'm saying. Okay. All right. So now we got to start off with, and again, I know you've told the story a bunch of times. I try to think of a stuff we could talk about, but we got to start with the beginning. You're from Nigeria.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much still a prince, still royalty, right?
Yeah, Adeleke. So my last name Ade actually means the crown, and Leke means the supreme. My full name is actually Ade Remi, so Ade means the crown, and Remi means appease me. So I'm Yoruba. In Nigeria, there's a few major tribes: Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and I'm Yoruba. And so my great grandfather was a chief in the Yoruba tribe, and he had like 9 wives, and he kept on having daughters after daughters, and finally he married another wife, and that was my grandmother. That was my grandmother, and she had a son who was my dad, and he inherited the title of chief because he was her firstborn son. And that was my dad, Chief John Adebayo Adeleke. And so fast forward a bit, my grandfather died, and my dad and my grandmother, all the wives went to different places with their kids. And my grandmother brought my dad down to the south of Nigeria towards Lagos, and there were a bunch of missionaries there. And not only were they teaching the Bible, but they would teach us science and math and literature and all Western schooling topics. And my dad was a savant. He was really, really intelligent, and he was able to memorize, equations and history and all of these different things. And he ended up getting a full ride scholarship to study engineering and architecture in London. And so he went to the West and did well in school, and he started his businesses. He was on the board of the World Trade Center in New York City, which is crazy. One of his friends was Yamasaki, and Minori, I always pronounce his last name wrong, but he was the architect of the Twin Towers, and he was successful in New York, in America, and he was successful in Britain. He was on the British Financial Planning Council, and then he wanted to come back to Nigeria to essentially make Nigeria what he felt it could be, because with all of the resources in Nigeria, he was of the mindset that there's no reason why it shouldn't be like the West. We have oil, we have cocoa, we have natural gas, we have gold, we have all of these amazing resources. We should be like America. And so he started developing some infrastructure. He bought a plot of land called Marico that he planned on turning into a financial sector. There was a big military coup in the 70s that got taken from him. After the coup ended and democracy was reinstated, he ended up going to court fighting the Nigerian government. And then they ended up asking him what did he want? And he requested a swamp, essentially. And they laughed at him and said, "What do you want to do with a swamp?" He said, "Don't worry about it, give it to me." And they gave it to him, and he ended up dredging the foreshore and creating one of the first man-made islands in the world, which is now known as Banana Island. It was known as a lagoon development project, but now it's known as Banana Island. Anybody can look it up online if they just type in Nigeria Banana Island. That was my dad's concept. And I was born around that time. So I was born in 1982, and when I came into the world, I was born into wealth. My dad, we had nannies, we had cars, we had drivers, we traveled the world. I got pictures behind me on the table, not this table behind me, but another table down of us in Paris and London and America and Fiji, all of these lavish places. And so I was born into wealth and opulence. And then we had the title of the prestigious title of an Adeleke. So every time we went places in Nigeria, people knew who my dad was, but, he was always, referred to as chief. And we were referred to as his sons and Adelekes of the chief. So that was the life I was essentially born into. It was a life of opulence for sure.
First man-made island. And then your dad was ahead of his time, and like, we can do all this. Look at the natural resources. Look what we have. Look at the coast. Oh, that's it. And then the issue, like, I think that from reading your book is like everything, corruption, government corruption, and they're gonna take it from you.
Absolutely. It was corruption to its fullest. But there's a saying in Nigeria, every day for the thief. Unfortunately, it's a very corrupt country. And, it's systemic. It has to do with greed. Everyone wants to, be rich, and they don't mind breaking the rules to be rich. Here in America, when somebody wants to get rich, especially when they start out poor, typically what it is, it's sports, there's other things, it's, rising up through the ranks in other ways. In Nigeria, it's let me get into politics, because if I can get into politics and become a politician, and I can become a billionaire. There's so many politicians that go into politics poor and come out of office billionaires, not millionaires.
Billion with a B. Yeah.
And so that's what essentially led to my father's downfall. When the government awarded him the swamp, it was actually the federal government. And after he developed it and created the land and started the construction, the buildings, and all that stuff, the Lagos state government, led by a politician, came in and said that this doesn't belong to you. The federal government was never supposed to give you this swamp, which was one, a lie, and two, if that was the case, then why did you wait until after the island was formed?
that worked out well for you, didn't it? I mean, that for the government, they wouldn't have wanted the swamp if it remained a swamp.
Exactly. And so they proceeded to confiscate the island. My dad had invested all of his wealth in it. My mom's American. I tell people all the time that my mom and dad, their story is a true coming to America story, because they met in New York City at the Museum of Natural History and got married 5 months later. My mom's like a straight up New Yorker. So she met my dad. My dad was like, I'm a prince. And she was like, yeah, whatever. And then he ended up Rico swabbing her, and they got married. But my mom, being an American and being from New York, she would tell my dad all the time, John, let's not put all of our money into this island. Let's kind of put some money in the States. And my dad was so loyal. And this was his downfall. He was so loyal to his people, and that he was like, no, let me get this situated first and get my island situated, get business going and everything off the ground. And then once I do that, then we can put money in the US. But his loyalty was our downfall, because again, they took the island. In the midst of taking the island, my dad went to courts to fight them, and within weeks he was dead. And when that happened, because of all of our wealth, my dad's art, our house, everything, millions and millions of dollars, because all that was wrapped up in this island, we went from rich to poor. We went to having absolutely nothing. And my dad's bodyguard is now to this day the manager of the island. So there were so many people, not just outside of his circle, that were working against him, but there were people inside of his circle that were betraying him in order to get a cut.
That's corruption at its finest. I'll do what I have to do as long as I get a cut of it. That's so. Wow. So now you're poor in Nigeria, but your mom's a New Yorker, so it's time to leave.
Oh yeah. My mom was just like, there's no way I'm raising my two boys. My brother was a year older than me, was with us as well. So my mom was just like, there's no way I'm raising these two boys here in Nigeria. I'm gonna go back to what I know. And so that was 1987. I was 5 at the time. My brother was 6. And we came back she brought us back to the States and to the Bronx, from one
I mean, going from private school to Fordham Road is probably quite a change.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't as big as a culture shock as some may think, because my mom is such a strong and awesome woman. Even to this day, she's a social media fanatic, and she does fitness training. She's a personal train her to people who are older. My mom's 70, and she's just such a go-getter. And my mom didn't want us to realize the situation that we were in. So she did a real good job of masking the reality of what had happened. That's the best way to explain it. So, in our apartment that we grew up in the Bronx, she decorated it with the finest things that she could take from our house in Nigeria: books, art, all of these things. So inside of our apartment, we didn't really think we were poor, because of the way my mom structured the apartment, and she would expose us to things and save her money to take us to art galleries and museums to expose us to the arts. But she kept us in that apartment the best she could when we were young, and she did the best she could to provide for us to keep us from realizing the situation we were in. So it wasn't as much of a culture shock initially. It wasn't until later that I finally realized the situation that we were in.
And so what was that situation then? Is it gang life or fights?
I just started seeing things, when I was 8 years old, my mom allowed me to venture off more without her into our neighborhood, into the park to play basketball. And, I would see the drug addicts lined up, not one drug addict, but a line of drug addicts standing in front of a drug dealer and he's selling drugs. I would see people getting jumped and beat up, and I got jumped. I got beat up really, really bad when I was 8 years old. I share the story in my book, but I got hammered by a guy who just got out of prison. And a 17-year-old when I was 8 for saying the wrong thing to a kid when I was playing basketball on the basketball court who was my age.
You were 8 years old playing basketball and a grown man beat you up.
Yeah. So I was I had a bit of a mouth on me when I was a young kid. Naturally, I gained that from growing up in the Bronx. But I was playing basketball with this kid, and we were talking junk just as normal. And he started talking junk because this whole situation is fresh in my mind because I just finished writing the screenplay for my book because it got picked up to be a film with a major studio. I can't say yet, but it'll be announced after the writer's strike.
Yeah, that's going on.
Yeah, but we were playing basketball and he was talking junk when he was winning, and then I started talking junk when I started winning, and he told me to shut up, and I said to him, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "I'm going to go get my brother." And I said, "Go get him." And I could have ran away, but I didn't know who his brother was. I didn't know his brother was a big time drug dealer in our neighborhood. And not only did his brother come back with him, but his uncle came back with him. His uncle had just been released from prison. And, long story short, they proceeded to beat the brakes off of me, beat me bad and slam me on the concrete, spit on me. They held me down to the uncle and the brother and allowed the kid to just wail on me. And after they were done, they said, don't ever talk crap to us again. And fortunately, my brother wasn't there. Because my brother's a year older than me, but there's no way my brother could have taken him. And that's why I say, fortunately, he wasn't there. But right after it happened, my brother kind of showed up when they left, and he picked me up off the ground and put his arm around me and helped carry me home. And the thing that I'll never, ever forget was there was this older gentleman who had to be probably in his late 40s, early 50s, who watched the entire thing. There was a large number of people who watched the entire thing, but this one guy sticks out to me the most because after everything happened, when my brother walked me home, he came up to us and he said, "Why didn't you fight back?" And I said to him, "You don't know who those guys are. Why didn't you help me? You're a freaking grown man." And so it was, having things happen to me and seeing things. I remember going into the local bodegas and seeing the mafia guys with the big collars coming in and collecting tags. So there was so many things I began to see, and that's when I realized, dude, we're not in Kansas anymore.
No, this is a completely different world. The mafia guys coming in to get their cut.
Yeah,
and I can't believe someone would. I mean, that's a crazy neighborhood. You got a grown man just got out of prison beating up an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very rough life. But I say all the time, and I know we'll get to this eventually, but it's bittersweet. I say it's sweet because it gave me the tools that I needed to have in order to get into buds and get through buds and be a frogman. You know, living a hard life really prepared me for that. And I don't think that if my dad didn't die, and if we lived a posh life, and then I, decided, hey, I want to be a frogman in America one day, I wouldn't have made it. There's absolutely no way I would have made it having had that good life. I had to have that hard life in order to, do what I ended up doing.
So after that, okay, as a kid that young in the Bronx, you just get your ass whipped. How does that change the way you act around? I mean, do you still go outside and walk around the neighborhood? Do you still play ball? Do you show up, or do they want to hit you again?
Yeah, no, I still, I was stubborn. I still went out. I still, played basketball. I just, watched my mouth a little bit more. I still did things. But as I grew a bit older, got to about 10, 11, 12, that's when I was like, it's time for me to make money. And the way I need to make money is the way I'm seeing other guys in my neighborhood make money. So I started out doing small things, stealing from the bodega, and then that progressed to getting jobs and stealing from jobs, and that progressed to selling drugs. And I sold drugs in the Bronx for a little bit, but then I realized that there was so much competition. I mean, every corner was saturated with drug dealers, and I didn't want to get into turf war with anybody and get shot. I was just trying to make money. I would take the train to Metro North up to Poughkeepsie, New York, and sell drugs up there. Me and a buddy of mine who I grew up with, we would buy our weight in Washington Heights and then go up north and sell our drugs there. And that's what I did, to make money. And I was making good money. And then that progressed to running high level scams, where I was essentially laundering the drug money through a cell phone company, and I was running this high level cell phone scam where I was getting people's social, date of birth, personal information, and activating lines of credit, activating phone lines, and essentially activating those phones and selling them to drug dealers. So I was on one person's line of credit, I could activate up to, my memory serves me right, activate up to 3 phones. And those phones would stay on for 90 days because the bill didn't come in for 30 days after the phone was activated. They had 30 days to pay, and if it wasn't paid in 60 days, then it would turn off 90 days later. So the drug dealers loved the phones because they could have a phone for 90 days and get rid of it, get a new phone, and do all their business and tracked. And so, by the time I was doing that, I want to say I was 19 when that hustle had reached its zenith. I was making ridiculous money. I bought a brand new Lincoln LS. I started a record company. I still keep this on my desk as a reminder because this is
shit.
It's our compilation album. That's me right there. But I started a record company and was paying for studio time and paying and doing small little mini tours, and I was able to put all that money into that business. Because of all the hustling I was doing.
And yet another bank has failed, and another interest hike. This is within a 1-year period. 186 more banks are at risk of collapsing. Your bank could be next, unless the Fed does what they did just back in March and print $300 billion out of thin air, making the dollar worthless. Not to mention the recession risk that could have a significant impact on your investment and retirement accounts. Take my advice. Protect your financial future with something real. And that's gold and silver from my friends at Allegiance Gold. Allegiance Gold can help you protect your IRA or 401k with physical gold and silver, or if you prefer, have it delivered securely right to your front door. Since the beginning of time, there is only one universal currency that is always a value, and that's gold. Allegiance Gold has the highest ratings in the industry, 5 stars with TrustLink, a AAA rating with the Business Consumer Alliance, and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. You can invest with confidence because of the quality and service of Allegiance Gold. Get up to $5,000 in free silver on a qualifying purchase when you visit protectwiththeoperator.com. today, or give them a call at 844-790-9191. Don't let the Fed play Monopoly with your money. Protect your future with Allegiance Gold. Visit protectwiththeoperator.com. Protectwiththeoperator.com, or call them at 844-790-9191. A lot of times we talk about mental health, and it's important to take care of yourself. Think about how much time you spend in a given week on somebody else, but you're not giving yourself enough time. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you, but you don't think about what you need from yourself. And when we spend all time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burnt out. And therapy can be a very, very good tool. I've benefited before. I always tell people, if you're having a bad day, call someone. If you're having a good day, call someone. But it's important to talk to people. And if you're thinking about therapy, give BetterHelp a try. You don't need to be in combat to have issues in your life, some kind of post-traumatic stress. It's entirely routine. BetterHelp is designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. You just need to fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. You can find more balance with BetterHelp. So visit betterhelp.com/operator and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/operator. So if you control the food, you control the population. I've mentioned this before. 60% of U.S. pork production comes from one company owned by China. Their hogs are given something called ractopamine, which is banned in 160 countries, including China, yet you find it in your grocery store every single day. I need to tell you about Moink. That's Moo plus Oink. It's a meat subscription box on a mission to fight for the family farm. It is run by an 8th-generation female farmer, and it delivers grass-fed, grass-finished beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, and sustainable wild-caught Alaskan salmon. Moink farmers farm like our grandparents did. As a result, Moink meat tastes like it should because the family farm does it better. The Moink difference is a difference that you can taste. You choose the meat delivered in every box, like ribeyes, chicken breast, pork, salmon fillets, a lot more. I eat it all the time. I love Moink. I seriously had the breakfast sausage today. It's outstanding. The bacon is amazing. They use nothing but salt and pepper. You're going to love it. I'm giving you the truth here. Check out Moink. Keep American farming going by signing up at moinkbox.com/theoperator. Right now, and listeners of the show get free bacon in your first box. You're going to love this bacon. You're going to order more, I promise. It's the best bacon you'll ever taste, but for a limited time. So spell M-O-I-N-K, moinkbox.com/theoperator. That's moinkbox.com/theoperator. Check out the bacon. Check out the chops. The steaks are unbelievable. moinkbox.com/theoperator. So we tell war stories here, and we tell other stories too. The thing is, war has rules, and babies do not. Dirty diapers, screaming fits, and sleepless nights. Parenthood is not for the faint of heart, and I know from experience. So check out Tactical Baby Gear. It was founded by parents for parents. Prepare for wherever parenting leads you with everything cool, like a fully customizable tactical diaper bag that's ready, but be ready because this could get messy. This gear is highly practical, highly functional, extremely high quality. It's always ready. Diaper bags, baby carriers, strollers, wagons, everything in between, lifetime warranty. So go to tacticalbabygear.com and use code THEOPERATOR and save 15% when you check out. They got a new one here that I love. They got a blowout kit that is perfect. It comes with an 8-pack of wipes, and there's a case of 100 premium diapers to get you started on a journey that you're about to begin. They got a nice a diaper bag sling. This gear is awesome. Comes with MOLLE equipped, all that stuff. It's rugged. Changing pads, strollers, straps, wipes, pouches, insulated cooler pocket for whatever you want to put in there, and a lifetime warranty. So go check out tacticalbabygear.com for the coolest baby gear in the world. You're going to look great. Your baby's going to be happy. Use code THEOPERATOR. Get 15% off when you check out. That's tacticalbabygear.com. Code THEOPERATOR. God, guns, and diapers, baby. Now, this is a dumb question. This is coming from a dude from Montana. How do you learn that slowly? Because I mean, there's obviously not a school. You don't. I don't think you get mentored. How do you just by watching people and knowing what they need as far as how they're going to get from A to B, or how does that work?
You know, I think it was a combination of things. It was a combination of being in the environment and seeing how other people moved and operated. It was also a part to it was just having my father's business instinct. my father was a very bright businessman, and I think that I inherited that. Now I use those tools the wrong way, but I still use those tools, right? And so I think it was a combination of things. And then meeting people, like for example, when I started doing the cell phone hustle, there was a guy who I met, and he was working for the same cell phone company. And, he pulled me aside and was just like, I'm gonna give you a little insight into what to do, but don't get caught. Because if you get caught, you're going to go to federal prison. And he said, get creative. And he kind of gave me somewhat of a template, and then I followed it and expanded on that template. So it was a combination of things, seeing people do it, meeting people who were carrying out a particular hustle, and then using my intuition and what I learned from my dad. Now, for example, like the whole moving from selling drugs in the Bronx to selling drugs in Poughkeepsie, I was just like, hey, this business is not going to work out as well down here because there's too many people doing it. But there's a bunch of colleges upstate New York where kids want to do drugs, and there's much competition. So let me jump on the Metro North. So it was a combination of things. If that makes sense.
I mean, you said you might have used them for bad, but I mean, they worked. That's proof. The proof's in the pudding. It might, depending on your definition of bad, but that is smart. Like, it's saturated here. I'm going to get a Metro North. I'm going to head up there. That's smart. So you do that, and then I read that a deal went really bad.
Yeah, I sold some phones to this drug dealer that were supposed to last for 90 days, as I mentioned. And I'll back up for a second. Towards the end of what I was doing, there were people that were getting caught and getting prosecuted and essentially getting fed time. So I was starting to get nervous and kind of ratchet down how much I was selling. And then I met this particular drug dealer who not only did he want to buy phones just for himself, but I later found out that he wanted to buy phones in bulk so he could flip them. So if I sold him a phone for $300, then he would then in return sell it for $600. And I was very reluctant initially, but then finally I said, you know what? Why not? Let me just do this for a little bit. Sell him these phones in bulk, collect this money, and then really invest it into the record company so that we could take off and I could do away with all of this stuff altogether. Yeah. So, I sold him some phones and they worked out for a little bit. And then I sold him another bulk order. And, within like 30 days, those phones cut off. And I was petrified for two reasons. One, because I was like, oh my God, if they cut off early, then that means that someone may be onto me.
Yes.
But then, I was petrified because this guy was not one to be messed with. He didn't suffer fools. And so he came to my house after the phones cut off and essentially threatened my life and said, if you don't have my money, by this time, things ain't gonna go too well for you. And I knew what that meant. I knew what that meant. Reputation. I knew he was going to kill me. That was just the reality of it. And I had money already stashed away from what I had been doing. And so the next day I just made a couple deals and made the rest of the money and gave him his money. And then that was the point where I decided I can't do this anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, what are you going to? And now, when you pay him back, you got to meet him face to face and give him the money, right?
Yeah. And I met him face to face, and I'll never. As soon as I handed him the money, his entire demeanor changed. He went from "I'm going to yo, what's good, man?"
Because I mean, a dude like that doesn't fuck around like that. That could go sideways too. You give him the money, then all of a sudden that could be it too.
Yeah. And I thought about that as I was going to go meet him. I can't remember if I wrote that into the book. I did write a variation of that into the film, into the screenplay, but it could have gone south real quick, because he did sell those phones to other people.
Yeah.
And he was deeply connected to some pretty dirty people. So was his life in danger? Because his life in danger, is he going to deal with me after I give him this money? Is he going to rob me? I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that once I get this situation dealt with, I'm I'm done. I'm done. I'm going into my own witness protection.
Well, but what do you, okay, you're in the Bronx. I got to be done with this. What are your options? There's not a lot of options.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to college. I had finished high school at this point, barely, finished high school. And my goal was to take the remaining money I had and just go 110% into the music game. And so this was December when all of this went down. The whole month of January, I'm going to meetings. As a matter of fact, it's so funny because you were on a Joe Budden's podcast. I got a funny Joe Budden story. So,
I want to hear it.
one of the first meetings that we got was a meeting with Kevin Liles of Def Jam.
Oh, wow.
And that was down around, not too far off of 42nd Street, right across from that very historic fire station that's down around 42nd Street. I think it's 8th Ave or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's Def Jam.
That's right. Exactly where I used to live. I used to live on 42nd and 10th.
Okay. So you know the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this complex that has a bunch of the different music studios there, and record companies there, excuse me. And go into this meeting with Kevin Liles, who's a big time music executive, and he was like, "All right, what you got for me?" And we played him this entire compilation album. He listened. And it's good. It's good. Yeah, I think it's really good. I thought it was really good back then as well. And he's listening, and the more he listens, like his demeanor begins to kind of like change, and he goes from like being upbeat to like being like a bit nonchalant. And as soon as that happened, I was like, oh God, he's not gonna sign us to a record deal and to a label deal, which is what we were trying to get because I had multiple artists signed to me. And after the last song played, he was like, "You want to hear something real good? You want to hear something better than that?" And then when he said that, in my mind, I was like, "I don't want to hear anything," because you're saying that means that you're not going to sign us to a deal. And he took out this CD, put it into the CD into the player, and it was Joe Budden's first single that hadn't dropped yet. It wasn't going to release for like another 2 to 3 months. And he said, "This is this new guy. We just signed him. His name is Joe Buttons. He's going to be the next big thing. He's going to be bigger than Jay-Z. He's going to be bigger than all of them. This is what you guys need to sound like." And at that point, I was just like, man, I don't want to hear nothing about this Joe Buttons. I don't want to hear nothing about nothing. Dude, like, just stop the music so I can leave. And so anyway, that's my short Joe Budden story.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I did Joe Budden's podcast. It was awesome too. Just like I mentioned, Montana, and he grew up in New York, because different lives. He asked me, he's like, "So you grew up hunting? So what, you just love to kill?" I'm like, "No." It's like, "You just love blood?" I'm like, "No, you shoot it, you respect it, then you eat it." What are you talking about?
Yeah. Two different worlds, man. Two different worlds.
Two completely different worlds too. But was that like when you decided the only option might be the military?
No, so that was January, and after that, for 6 months, I did absolutely nothing. I didn't pursue any. I mean, the only thing I did pursue was trying to get the music business off the ground. That didn't work. I literally sat home for like 6 months and watched Jerry Springer and tried to think of other things to do. And my mom would come into my room almost every day and say, "You need to get out of here and get a job because I'm not taking care of no grown ass man." And I said, "Mom, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out." And then, one day one morning I was in my bedroom and I woke up and I swear, man, I heard this voice tell me, "You need to get out of here. You need to join the military."
Yeah.
And I just remember myself out the bed, looking around to see who had said, and I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know what it was. Looking back, I believe it was God, but I didn't know what it was at that point. And I just started battling with the idea. I was like, join the military.
That hit me too when I was reading it, because it was something like growing up in the Bronx, you didn't really have a positive attitude towards people in uniform.
No, I hated anybody in uniform, whether you were a police officer. Well, I associated anybody in uniform as a police officer, and I hated the police. So, I didn't want to have anything to do with anything uniform service. And I hate the American government. I it was just all of the things that I was essentially taught at that age.
Yes.
And there's so many other kids are taught in inner cities across America. That was my mindset. And so I battled with the idea to join the military because of how I was conditioned, And
well, you know what else I read too that really jumped out at me was how you lost your father. You're growing up with a single mom, and in the streets, you're looking sort of for that father figure, and you're not finding it in the right spots. Something you think could be that, but that's not it. And it's like that hit home for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, it was unconsciously I was searching for a father, and what it boils down to, I was searching for affirmation. I truly believe that every child needs to be affirmed by both parents, but especially a father. Because a father's affirmation is worth its weight in gold. And when a child doesn't get that, they're going to seek it out in other things. A girl's going to seek that out in relationships. A guy's going to seek that out in that pat on the back. That's why when you see a lot of pro athletes and rappers, but pro athletes especially, who make millions of dollars for the first time, they didn't have a dad in their life, and then they're blowing the money on like all of these Lamborghinis and going to the strip club, making it rain, just all of these different things. What does that boil down to? They're seeking that affirmation that they didn't receive from their father. And that's what I was doing. I was seeking affirmation that I didn't receive from my father. And I got it from the wrong places. And that played a big role in conditioning me to be the man who I ended up, becoming at 19, 20.
Yeah, when you said that too, a mother and a father, like the family, and I think that's a lot of problems today is because kids are growing up without a father figure, and I think it's important to have that.
Oh, 100%. One thing that keeps me going and motivates me in life is and motivates me to stay healthy is my 4 kids. I got 4 kids, man, and I can't imagine not being in their lives. I can't imagine when me and my wife have battles and arguments and fights and we're pissed at each other. What keeps us together, especially what keeps me fighting for my marriage, is keeping my family unit together. Because I know the importance of both a mother and a father. And I think that when you look at the inner city, I think that the single parent rate, if my memory serves me right, in the inner city is like somewhere between like 70%.
Yeah, I saw that the other day. It's something very, very high. And that's just and that contributes. People want to say this is the problem, this is the problem. That's part of the problem there is that not having that cohesive family and the father figure around. I think that's true.
It leads to what? It leads to crime. It leads to, teenage birth and teenage parents. It leads to all of these things in the inner city. And the link always comes back to, in my opinion, the absence of a father to really guide and teach and affirm and love and pick that kid up and say, this is not what you're supposed to do. This is not what you're meant for. A mom could do that. My mom would do that all the time. As a matter of fact, I started out, when we started talking about the meaning of my name, Remi Adeleke. That's so fresh in my mind because as a kid, every time I would get in trouble, my mom would say, this is who you are. This is what your name means. You're not meant to be in those streets. You're not that. Stop acting like that. Stop being like that. Remi Adeleke, the crown has appeased me. The crown is supreme. And, a mom can say that to you. And came in and stayed in my head for a bit, but then after a while it left. But to have a father say that, I think it sticks more. And I even see with my kids, me and my wife were having a discussion last night because, my 2 boys are just fighting so much, which is natural. They're 9 and 8. And, my wife had a really rough day with them yesterday. And she was like, I don't know what it is. And she'll say something to them and it goes in one ear, it stays with them for a bit, and it goes out, and then back to the shenanigans. But then I'll come in and I'll have a stern talk with them. Listen, you need to listen to your mother. This is not going to happen again. And it's cemented, and they're good to go. So I can't remember how we got on that topic. But
we were talking about the voice in the room. And what do you do going from the streets? And we just said trying to find a father figure. But then that voice in the room, you think it's God. It's probably God, but I did hear you say in an interview before, it's not that booming loud God voice. It's just the whisper. It's like, hey, here's your option.
Yeah, it was like that small, still voice. And as I mentioned, I battled with it. And then, finally I looked around my room and looked at the picture of my dad and I said, screw it. What else do I have to lose? I have nothing else to lose. And so let me see what happens. And that's when I decided to go try and join the military. I went to a Marine Recruitment office first. There was nobody in the office. Thank God. I mean, the office was open, and there was coffee on the desk, but the person wasn't in the office. And then I got up and I went 2 doors down to the Navy recruiter's office, and because I had watched a film called The Rock.
Yes.
And first exposure to Navy. I never knew what Navy SEALs were until, who they were until I saw that film. And then shortly after I saw the Buns 2, 3, 4 documentary, and I was like, these guys are cool. So I went to the Navy recruiter's office and met the recruiter who changed my life. I mean, she saved my life,
Well, it changed everything in your life, and I have a similar experience with. But think about that: if you didn't go into the Navy's office, that little decision that day changes the whole trajectory of everything. The whole butterfly effect.
Everything. I would not be here on this podcast with you. That didn't happen, man. Went in and had, long story short, she ran my background and found out I had 2 warrants out for my arrest. And
now if she has 2 warrants for your arrest, you can go to jail right then because she could call it in.
She could have called me in, and I got up and got ready to run out the office. Got to the door. I did run, and I got to the door, and she was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm getting out of here." And she said, "Where are you gonna go?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "Come back tomorrow." I said, "For what?" And I thought that she was going to turn me into the police. And she snapped at me. She said, "Just come back tomorrow." She said, "Find a collared shirt, some nice pants, and come back tomorrow." And, growing up in the streets of the Bronx, I learned how to read people. You kind of have to, especially when you're doing the things that I was doing as far as hustling. And I didn't know exactly what she was going to do, but from her tone and her inflection and the way she looked at me, I knew that whatever it was going to be something beneficial. I figured that she wasn't going to turn me into the police. And so I came back the next day, and she took me to both judges. She took me to the judge in New Jersey, stood before him, advocate on my behalf, told him, "Hey, listen, this kid's made mistakes, but he has potential. He wants to join the Navy after war 9/11 that just happened, a few months earlier." And the judge said, "All right, if this guy is serious about joining the military after 9/11 happened, I'll expunge his record and clear his warrants and allow him to join the military. He just has to pay court fees and court fines." And so I got that cleared up, and then she drove me to the judge in New York. And I always find it so interesting because I'll never forget sitting in the car. And again, that's all of this is so fresh in my mind because I just finished writing the film and I wrote the scene in the film. And I just remember sitting in the car and a few blocks down was where the Twin Towers stood. And so this is 9/11 was September. This was June. And it was still cleanup, and there was still a lot of stuff going on. And went into the courthouse, and she said the same thing, and that judge expunged my record. And that's essentially how I was able to get. And then she went a step further and fudged the paperwork in time, because even with my record expunged, she was able to work some magic to essentially get me cleared in the system and help. That's how I got into the Navy. That was how it happened.
That's like an angel right there, because just think about the time of day it took for her to get you to New Jersey, to get you to Lower Manhattan, to see the judges, to get the paperwork done. I mean, yeah, she's filling a quota, but it's like that's she could have missed 5 quotas that day by taking you around. That's a great leader right there.
100%. And I say this sadly, she died 2 years later after she got me into the Navy. I mean, I didn't know this, but when I met her, she had an autoimmune disease that she had for years. And I think that's why she was on shore duty. And so, yeah, she died tragically of her autoimmune disease 2 years later. So I truly believe she was an angel, and I'm close, very close with her family now. I'm close with her daughter and her brother and her mom. I actually saw her mom and her dad last year in Florida. Well, yeah, last year, and her daughter. And yeah, man, she was truly an angel.
Yeah, that everything that just came together, not for you to be selfish, but for all of that to happen, for you to meet her in that office, to get you to that place, it just springboard. So, wow. So okay, so did you go to Great Lakes?
Yeah, went to Great Lakes boot camp, and had fun there. Luckily it was July, so it was
yeah. My experience with boot camp, and I wonder if yours is similar, is getting in there with, you got dudes from every corner of the country. And the only thing we had in common, I'm looking around at dudes from New York and dudes from Florida. The only thing we had in common is we're all scared shitless.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't too scared, you know. I was like,
I was scared.
I was 20 at the time, and I was happy about the new start in life, and I was excited about, you know, hopefully getting a chance to go to Buds and become a frogman. And I gravitated to guys like Dirty, you know, because you know what I'm talking about, Dirty, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
And
I love him.
Yeah, we were in boot camp together. I met him.
Yeah, that's right. He told me that. I can't believe how small the world is.
Yeah. So we were in boot camp, and he was, you know, I think he was like 17, straight out of high school. Wow, crazy in boot camp. And he hung out with all
he was
guys.
a punk at 28. I can imagine him at 17.
Oh my God, he was crazy, and we became really, really close friends in boot camp. So it's just experiences like that where that made boot camp fun, and it was no fear for me, because I was hanging out with Dan, and there was a few other guys who would eventually make it through as well, we were all in that same division together. But there were so many other guys who were just like petrified, and I found that quite funny though. The guys who would cry themselves to sleep because they miss mommy and daddy.
Well, yeah, I could see where you weren't afraid, after the Bronx, and I wasn't one of the guys that cried in the bunk, but I would like, what the fuck did I just do? Why am I doing this? But I actually, a lot of guys had the same issue that I had, but you had it too. Didn't know how to swim. How do you overcome that in boot camp?
Yeah, so that was horrible. I jumped off the tower. I was literally drowning. I was able to fight my way to the top, and I just remember getting on my back. And I just got on my back because I didn't know how to swim on my stomach. I didn't know how to swim on my side. I just remember getting on my back. And the one thing that motivated me was I didn't want to be NQS. And I just remember all the Black kids that they would be marching from their division to the NQS remediation program. I didn't want to be part of that group, and I wanted to be part of the guys who were going to Buds. And so it was pride that got me to the end.
Because swimming's not really something you can gut yourself through. That's very impressive.
Yeah, I got on my back, poured my way to I got on my back, and I just started doing this on my back. And I was singing, and I just started doing this on my back there, and I got to the other end, and that's how I passed that. Yeah, that's essentially how I passed that.
But there is going to be an entry level test to get into Buds. Where did you take that? You didn't take that in boot camp.
No. So after boot camp, I got to my first command naval hospital, Camp Pendleton. And as soon as I got there, I asked my LPO. I said, "Hey, I want to try to go to Buds one day. Is there a possibility where you could change my schedule? Can you change my schedule where I work?" Because I was working in a family practice clinic where I work 4 hours in the morning, have the afternoon off the train, and then work the night clinic until 8:00 p.m. And she said, "No problem." We worked that schedule. So in the afternoon, I remember getting I bought the Buds documentary. I got protein powder. I got training equipment. I got all of the stuff that I needed to get. And I was training hard. I would run. I didn't have a car, so I would run 3 miles uphill to the pool, jump in the shallow end, try to figure it out. I watched videos and swimming videos, and would go to the pool and try to figure it out. And then after some months, I finally asked the lifeguard if he could talk me through the stroke. just talk me through, hey, what I'm doing. And he said, all right, I'll talk, because I knew he couldn't come down and teach me because he was a lifeguard.
So he literally just talked you through it, the side stroke?
Hey, talk me through a side stroke, talk me through what to do. And I would do a lap and look up at him. He's like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. And eventually I, was proficient enough to take the screening test to get into buds. I failed it the first time because I passed everything, but I failed to swim by like, I think, a minute. And they allowed me to retake it, I want to say 60 days later, and I passed it. I had to retake the ASVAB as well because I didn't have the ASVAB scores initially when I joined the Navy to get into buds. So I retook the ASVAB in that time, and everything happened the way it happened, and I got orders to buds. And I checked in the Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton in January 2003, and I checked out in January 2004.
And then buds in 2004?
Yeah, buds in 2004. I started with class 250.
250. And then, so you made it through Hell Week in that class, right?
So in 250, I got med roll in Hell Week. I had pneumonia, psych, and rhabdo. And then I restarted day one of phase with 251, made it through Hell Week with 251.
So back to day one again, and then what happened in second phase? I know what happened, but let's hear it.
So, well, a few things. I had failed every ocean swim in first phase. So after I made it through Hell Week with 251, I got Master Chief Crampton, God rest his soul. Him and the CEO at the time, and the XO Commander Zinke, decided to double roll me after I made it through Hell Week. They were just like, we're not even gonna allow you to continue. You made it through Hell Week. We're not gonna let you continue. We just want to get you swimming. We just wanted to teach you how to swim. So they put me in brown shirt, back land. After my time there, I was finally able to pass my swims. So when I got to 253, we got to dive phase, I failed my first two swims because the times dropped from 85.
Yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is the further you go, the less time they give you to finish the evolution. Yeah. Like I remember being that age through buds too. Like I could be taking the time on the weekend to be training, or I can go out.
I can go out to the gas lamp. And that's what I did. I went out to the gas lamp district and party. In my mind, I had already arrived.
Yes.
I had already made it through Hell Week in my mind. So I was like, I'm already there. I'm going to be a frogman no matter what. And that was my pride, and that, again, that came from the lack of affirmation that I, as a kid, and not having a man to say, listen, I know that you're successful, but now that you're successful, you can't take your foot off the gas. You still
That's something people need to realize too, because the people that follow Navy SEALs, they don't realize that you get through Hell Week, you're not even close yet.
Nowhere near close.
No. You graduate buds, you're not even a new meat yet. You're just in the pipeline.
Yeah, you still got STT. You still got, well, I know I think it was the STT back then.
STT, yeah, but still, even that cocky attitude. You got to. It took me to get to a team, not even a platoon, to get humility again, to realize these guys will fuck me up. I don't know shit.
Yeah. And it's not until after you've done your first deployment that that's when it's like, all right, you're a SEAL.
And you might be able to say something in the team meeting that maybe after a platoon. So you're out in second phase. You go to another class, or did you went to the fleet again?
Yes, I failed my first two swims, and then I got to pool week, and I failed the dive pool week. For those who don't know, it's a week where you do a bunch of different dive tests, dive evolutions. And I failed a dive evolution 4 times. So I failed the tread with the dive tanks.
Yeah.
And, because I had already been double rolled for swims, and because I failed my first 2 swims in dive phase and then failed tread, they were like, all right, dude, you can't be here anymore, dude. Like you're not qualified. You don't have what it takes, so go away. So, which was I've recently gone through a situation, just speaking from recent experience, where I got humbled big time, in a very similar way. because I got to the point where I forgot the principle of when you get to the top, when you get to where you want to be, remain humble. And I recently got humbled the same way I got humbled in this particular situation where I got sent to the fleet, but it was necessary. That's the point I'm trying to make. What happened to me then was 100% necessary. If I would have stayed in and made it through, I would have been out of control in the teams. I think I would have really, really been out of control in the team. I might even gotten to the teams and gotten kicked out of the teams if I didn't get that humbling that I needed. And same thing with this current situation that I'm in now, where I really, really needed to be humble because I got to a place where I was just getting a little bit too big for my bridges with all of the things that's been going on, all of the success, in film and TV, books and all of this other stuff. And I just forgot to maintain that humility. And I got crushed recently. So that's what happened. And got sent to Camp Pendleton, back to Camp Pendleton. This time I got sent to 1st Marine Division with the grunts. It was a very humbling experience. And I'm now with the ground pounders, man. And it was a kick in the nuts. But luckily, my LPO, who I started out with, about a year later, he became the command career counselor. And so he knew how much I wanted to get back to BUD/S. So he went and spoke to the command master chief, 1st Marine Division, who was in charge of all of the corpsmen. And essentially said, hey, this dude's been a great worker. He wants to get back to BUD/S. Is there anything that we could do now that I'm the command career counselor? He was like, hey, you vouch for him. So many words. He's like, if you vouch for him, then yeah. But just make him sign a page 13 saying that if he doesn't make it this time, that he's going to come back in 3 years and 2 years, and he's going to stick it out. And so I signed that page 13. And so when I went back to BUD/S with 266, I knew that, all right, this is it. You only got one shot, one kill.
But you just said getting humbled and humility, but taking a mistake and turning it into a learning experience is so important. And I mean, that's a big one. Like that, one day to one day to Hell Week to second phase to a year, and then but just to keep that drive. That I learned that maybe that now just wasn't the time. Let's go back. I could not imagine going back to one day at BUD/S.
A1, brother. And it's so funny. The funny thing was when I got there, there was like this rumor that was probably started from a BUD/S instructor. Through Hell Week once, you don't have to do it again. It was like this, and I remember being the second week of phase and hearing that, and I was like, yes. And then it was like, oh no, you're going through Hell Week again, bro.
That's the mind fuck we're talking about. Just try to catch you off guard, try to make you complacent. Oh, by the way, you're doing it. You just get your shit on. Oh, because I mean, Hell Week is that's quite an experience right there. Just that's where I learned how to you make a long-term goal out of short-term goals. My long-term goal was to see the sun come up on Wednesday, and then hopefully they can just push me through the rest. That's Hell Week's no joke, but to do it again.
Yeah. I was just like, for me, it's like I just want to get to the next evolution, and then once I got to next, I just need to get to the next. That's kind of how I broke it up, and it was easier the third time. the first time I made it to Tuesday night at Hell. I got to feel better,
Yeah.
And then the second time I made it through Hell Week, and so the third time, it's like, all right, I've already kind of seen this before. I already know what's going to come. I already when the instructors say they're going to keep us in the water for like another hour, I already know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Did you learn at the time that it's all structured? Like there's a definite time limit. They have to do everything, but they keep chaos going.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was able to see through it a little bit. And I think that's what made it easier because I was like, okay, like I know that they have to get by a certain time. They got to get from one point to another point. We got to get forgot that the Silver Strand run. We got to get to the elephant cages at some point. Once we get to the elephant cages, we're going to have some type of meal. It's going to be MREs, and then we're going to have to run with the boats on the head for a certain amount of time. But then we're going to have to do live PT. And then being a corpsman, I knew that there was only but so much they could do. The longer that their bodies breaking down. So it sucks. Like I ain't going to say
it still sucks, and we still got to get to Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
All right, so then you get through Hell Week, and then dive phase. This time, you're ready for it. And another thing too that people don't realize is like you don't just get your scuba gear. Like you gotta understand dive medicine, which is very complex. The dive physics, the dive tables, the recompression stuff. You got like classroom shit. Then the 5.5 nautical mile swim, which is actually 7.1 miles.
Oh, is it?
Well, yeah, real miles. The nautical miles.
Got it.
We got to do that twice in my class because we swam against the current and not everybody made it. And so then, but they said, you're good. They pulled us out. Then the next day, the next Monday or something, we had a written test. They said, hey, by the way, not everyone didn't finish the 5.5. So put your pencils down, grab your rubber, doing it again. It's like, what?
God.
No,
Bro,
not getting in that. I hate that ocean. I had a saying when they would say, are you worried about great whites? I'm like, no, with my luck, a great white would let me finish a 2-mile swim, drag me 2 miles out and make me do it again.
Yeah. Bro, that was, and then here's the thing with the swims. Even the second time I was in, I hated the swims. I hated the 2-mile time. I mean, it was like, that was like the runs, 4-mile time run, I could do that all day long. Old course, I could do that all day. Beat down session, like the lot, all that. My kryptonite was the swim. I try to talk myself into liking it because no one's yelling at you, but it's like, this just sucks. Yeah, it was horrible. And the 5.5 mile was just like, I was just like, oh my God, this is relentless. So,
that is a gut check for sure. But okay, so you finished pool comp, finished pool week, finished dive phase. Well, how was your experience on San Clemente Island?
It was cool, man. I was just so happy to be there.
Yeah. After that journey, yeah, I would be too.
I was just so happy to be there. I love the child PTs, frog kill, all of that. I remember we do the bets with the instructors. And so to get out of child PT, so I won a bet for our class where I had to do 50 pull-ups with all the gear on with the web.
50
web shape, everything. And so I love that. So I did 50 and got the whole class because it was either do 50, because once you make the bet, you know what it is. Either do it and get out of the child PT or don't make the cut. And the whole class has to get wet and eat lunch or dinner, whatever is wet. And it's always cloudy on the freaking island. There's never any sun out. And so I did it. So I love the stuff. And I really felt like that's when the class really comes together even more so, because you're not able to go back home on the weekends.
That's it. That's like 40, 45 straight days where no one can hear you scream. That's another one no one hears about because there's some shit going on out there too.
Yeah, man. Oh my God. Yeah.
But I think that's so good for the camaraderie though, because that's something that only frogmen have in common is that one. Well, a couple different things, but that one we've all done.
Yeah.
So then with your pipeline, SQT was next, right?
Yeah, so
or did you go to jump school next?
No, we did. We did. Was it jump school or C?
No, because your jump school story, and not a lot of people have a good jump school story, but I heard yours, and Can you tell that is because that, I mean, a static line jump is basically you're hooked to a plane, jump out, the parachute comes, and all you have to do is know how to hit the ground. It's not hard.
Yeah.
No, but tell me what happened to you.
Yeah, so I went to static line jump school. Went through I think we did a week of classes, and then next week we just had to do 4 jumps or something like that to finish. And on the first, I want to say, my memories. Yeah, this was the first. I want to say the first or second day. So on the first day we did, I think 1 jump or something like that. That was fine. And then, no, this was all on the first day, actually. Again, this is years ago.
It's a long time ago. No worries.
Yeah, I didn't write this in the film because I couldn't get it. But I did the first jump. That was fine. The winds picked up that day. I mean, the winds were super, super violent. So we went back up to do my second jump. I was a number 3 man. Out of a 4-man stick. So the number 4 man jumped out first, then 3, then 2, then 1. For some reason, when I jumped out, I passed the number 4 man, so the guy who was under me, and I became number 4. But when you're in the sky and like separated by these long, then you can't really, no one can really tell.
No.
And we had these not microphones, but these two-way radios on our chest, and the ground DZO commander was kind of giving us adjustments and saying, you know, number 4 guy do this, number 3 guy do this. And so we're coming down, the winds are really high, and I start hearing number 3 guy, turn into the wind. And when I was out, I was a number 3 guy. So I was like, into the wind. Why is this guy telling me to turn into the wind? I'm into the wind. Like I feel the wind at my face. Like I'm you know, and as I start getting closer, he starts screaming even more frantic. I said, turn into the wind, turn into the wind now, turn into the wind now. So I'm like, holy crap, man. I was like, man, this is just my second jump. Maybe he knows something I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Like, let me not freaking, you know, not listen to this guy and end up freaking killing myself because the winds are super hot. And so, like, I proceeded to turn my canopy, and you know how long? I mean, you could pull down.
The big rounds, yeah.
And it's like inches. I mean, you're moving inches, right? And so, as I turn and I get to where I think he's telling me to get, a gust of wind just blasts my sheet because now I'm not into the wind.
You were into the wind at first, but he's talking to somebody else to turn. So you're good, but then you turn downwind, and that's when shit goes sideways. Okay.
So I turned downwind because I was a number 4 guy, but I didn't know I was a number 4 guy. So he was actually talking to the guy who I had replaced when I passed him. And yeah, man, I had to make a decision. I got really, really close to the ground. And I was like, dude, if I try to turn back with how slow this canopy is, I'm gonna land sideways, and that's gonna be that can turn into a head injury. That can turn into a
that could be bad.
I was like, screw it, you know, I just gotta live with it and to best PLF I can. And as soon as I hit the ground, I felt my ankle snap, like literally it snapped. I heard a crackle, and then I heard a pop.
Oh shit!
And I later found out that was my medial malleolus, which is the bone of stability in your ankle. I split that in half. And I was like, it was painful. It was freaking painful. And I got up and got my canopy together as best I could. And I took some steps, bone slip. I immediately dropped to the ground. Got back up, bone slip, immediately dropped to the ground, you know, because of the pain. And then I finally made a decision. I had to make a decision. I had to decide, dude, do I go to medical? Because every guy had to check in with the medic. You know, that's part of it. Because so many people get injured on PLFs, everybody, once they get in, they have to check in with the medic so she can make sure that the person has no injuries, so on and so forth. And so I had to make a decision. When I get to the medic, do I tell her that I have this injury and then roll back and then heal up and then have to start static line jump school again and potentially break my ankle again?
Yeah.
Or do I just suck it up, and try to hide the injury the best I can and do my last 2 jumps and then go to the hospital? So
you decided to do 2 jumps on a broken ankle.
Yeah, on an obliterated ankle.
There's a difference. This is obliterated. So I mean, I remember hearing one of your interviews. You can feel it sliding back and forth as you're trying to pretend you're not hurt.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was all over the place. And then so I limped over to the medic, and she was like, "Why are you limping?" And I told her I sprained my left ankle. It was a right.
The other one. Yeah, you broke your right. You got to look at my left.
Yeah. And so she's like, all right, let me see. Let me look at it. So she looks at my left ankle. There's nothing wrong with my left ankle. Like, I see some swelling, but I think it'll be fine. I was like, all right, good to go.
Aren't you, like, if someone hurts their ankle, aren't you supposed to compare them? Like, take the other shoe off and compare the ankles?
You're supposed to take off both and compare to see the difference in the swelling, but she didn't do that.
And as a corpsman, you knew she was supposed to do that, but you're not going to just volunteer that information to her as a shitty corpsman.
And I was praying to God that she wanted, you know, because if she looked at my other ankle was
shattered.
Yeah, and so I got on the bus, and as soon as I got on the bus, I told my guys, I was like, listen, dude, I was like, I broke my ankle, guys. And it was like, oh, crap. And it was like, but listen, help me hide this thing. And then after I heal, after we do these last 2 jumps, because we were supposed to do the last 2 jumps that day, then then I'll go to the hospital. It's like, all right, don't worry, Adeleke, we got you covered. So we get back to the hangar, and as soon as we get there, the instructors was like, hey guys, we're calling the day.
Oh man.
Because the winds are way too high. So we're calling the day.
So you get to deal with that pain all night now.
Yes. So like, dude, I don't know how I got to my car. When I got my buddy, another SEAL, he helped me get up to my apartment because I had to go upstairs. And then as soon as I got through my threshold of the door, I just collapsed. And I was like, I had to crawl everywhere. I couldn't walk at all.
No.
And I remember I couldn't take a shower. I couldn't do anything. And I remember like even trying to go to sleep. I got in bed, and when I laid on my side, the bone, because of the split, my foot would come down. Broken bone. When I lay on my back, it would come down. Right? So the only thing I could do, I got out of the bed and I went and sat on the couch, and I just pretty much tried to push the bone together. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, let me just push my foot down.
Yeah, I'll rub some dirt on it. I'll push it together.
Yeah, that was the only way I was able to sleep. And so the next morning, a buddy of mine who played at SDSU, played football, he came over and spatted up my ankle, and then went back to the hangar and did my last 2 jumps.
You did 2 jumps on that ankle.
2 jumps on that ankle, brother. Yeah.
And then, I mean, how a PLF sucks with two legs. Are you landing on one?
There's a part of the story that I forgot to say. When I got back to the hangar, the instructors said, hey, we need each and every single one of you to do PLF practice jumps.
We're going to practice jumping off of boxes.
Yeah. So we had to walk up these like 3 or 4 steps, stand on a box and do a practice PLF. And the reason why the instructors made us do it is because I guess they've run many classes before, so they know if a guy gets injured, he's not going to be able to do the PLF practice, or we're going to be able to find out who's really injured and who's not. Mm-hmm. And so the whole class, all the guys were watching me because they all knew.
Everybody knows, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I get up on a box, I jump. Like there's no way I can like literally land, do a proper PLF. So what the instructor, hey, do another one. That sucked. That wasn't a proper. Get up, do another one. Get up, do another. You're still not doing it right. What's wrong with you, Adeleke? You're still not doing it right. Do another one. Finally, the female medic who checked me out the day before, she runs up. Like she had just got in. I guess she had just drove in late. She runs up and she's like, hey, stop. Like he sprained his ankle yesterday. You're just making it worse. Stop making the jump. It's not that he doesn't know how to do a PLF. It's that he sprained his ankle. And he's like, all right. But I had to go through like 10 minutes of excruciating pain, and every time I hit the ground, bone slip, crunch. And then, so after I did that, then I did my last 2 jumps and went to the hospital. Two jumps,
and then I need some Motrin.
Yeah.
What do they do with the ankle at that point? Just put you in a cast, or what do they do?
Yeah, I got casted up, and then they were going to do surgery, but which is what I was really pushing for, because I was told that surgery it'll heal up faster, but they decided not to. They decided to instead put a bone stimulator. So there was this new technology where after you get out the cast, there's a bone stimulator that you put on, and it sends like these waves or whatever through your ankle to instigate your ankle bone, get that bone fusing together. And I just remember hating that thing because it was just, the whole process was slow. I couldn't walk for like 3 months, And but yeah. Then after that, I healed up. Went to SEER. After SEER, went to SQT. Had no problems with SQT. Made it through, and then checked into the SEAL.
You know the story that you told about SEAL Team 3, not SEAL Team 3, about SQT was the land nav in Kodiak up in Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just a brief story about how all of a sudden you're by yourself, and that's when you get like alone with your thoughts, and whatever nature says to you, it kind of makes you think about, well, all the shit you've done wrong. Now I'm going to change.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. So when I was in Alaska, we had to do it was like a survival / land nav course, and you have to do it alone. You can't you can't interact with anybody. As a matter of fact, our class is so small at that point anyway, but they space us out on this massive wilderness Alaskan
Oh,
island.
yeah.
And you got to get from one point to another point. And that was the first time. And there's no cars, there's no roads.
There's nothing. There's nothing.
It's just complete silence. And that was the first time in nature where I had time to really reflect on my life, because I don't have an iPod, I don't have anything. I'm walking around and I'm just like, and as I was reflecting on my life, I saw the man that I had become. And I didn't like what I saw. I saw a man who was like, who treated women horribly. I saw a man who treated his mom horribly and his brother horribly. I saw a man who was extremely prideful. I just started seeing all of these things. And it was literally like somebody was holding up a mirror and showing me what I had become. And I didn't like what I saw. And I made a decision. I decided, you know what, when I get out of this freaking Alaskan wilderness, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna be a different person, because the person I am cannot continue anymore. But that was a divine experience. And
that is so deep the way you said that. It's almost like a divine experience, putting a mirror up in front of me and showing me who I'd become, and I don't like what I see. That's giving me goosebumps right now.
Yeah, it was raw, it was needed, and that was the only way I could have seen myself. And I needed to be cut off from the world. And that's what I try to do. I try to encourage people all the time that are going through struggles, or, even reached like a high level of success, is to, take time to just get alone, get away from everything, and do an examination of your life. So interesting. I heard somebody say the other day, we don't live life forward, we live life backwards. And that's somewhat true, because the decisions we make moving forward all come from what we did and our reflections from our past.
Right. What we did, and how do we respond and learn, hopefully. And that's a kick-ass experience. I read that story about you in Alaska, and that's just like you said, it's divine, and that's going to hopefully change your trajectory.
Yeah, and it did. It did. When I got back from Alaska, there's a lot more to the story. Won't give it away. People can check it out in the book Transform. But yeah, in short, I started going to church. Kind of, decided, what, I'm gonna just try and live for God and have God guide me. The Father that I was seeking, my entire life.
That is again so deep. The Father I was looking for, and now I found him in God.
Yeah, 100%. And then from there, everything changed, man. Like, everything changed. I stopped, womanizing. I stopped, being crazy and wild. And I just stopped everything. The biggest thing was the pride that I was really able to kind of beat down. But as I mentioned earlier, incrementally over the years, it's risen back up and it reached its peak recently. Which I'm not proud of. But it crushed me, and it was good. It was good.
Yeah, that's incredible. All right, so that's a couple years worth of trying to get to a SEAL team, and you check into SEAL Team 3. What year did you check into SEAL Team 3?
2008. I want to say 2008. Yeah.
Because if my history serves me correctly, Task Force Bruiser was 2006. Correct?
Yes.
And so that's and again, I'm not going to get into them, but checking into a team with that experience in combat, that's got to be, it's like drink from the fire hose, but almost not in awe, but like these dudes have seen it.
Oh yeah. It was something cool. I remember when I first got into the platoon space at 3 for my platoon, Chris Kyle was in there. Chris Kyle.
No shit, huh? Yeah.
Was in the platoon space talking to, I think, Hootie. Were you a buzz with Hootie? I think he was
right around the same time.
Okay, so Hootie and Hootie was there. He was my platoon chief. But yeah, it was Dale Fortin. They were some freaking knuckle dragging meat eaters, man. At Team 3 when I checked in, and it was definitely like drinking through a fire hose, man. Especially when we got to work up at ULT, and Jocko was our freaking he was running land warfare, and freaking him. He would kill like half the platoon, and we were in the middle of IADs. We're having to carry out like half the platoon, but still shoot, move, and communicate. And it's like 120 degrees out there.
Yeah.
So it was a lot, but it was awesome, man. I mean, I was like,
that you want to be there for sure.
Man, it was everything that I dreamed and more. I loved it. I loved how hard it was, and I loved that it was like work. You know, it was work, and it was, you know.
If you're in the vicinity of Jocko, you will be working.
Oh yeah. 100%, man. Yeah, he was laying down the law, and he would chew into platoon chief. I remember when we would get briefs, man. He talked to the platoon chief, or he talked to the freaking OIC, the platoon, the same way he would talk to the most junior guy. You know what I mean? And I kind of respected that. You know?
Yeah, I did too. And again, with the leadership, not only would he never ask you to do anything he wouldn't do, he also knew about everything. Like if he tells you to make sure you have your radio crypto and all this stuff, he knows how to do it. So don't lie to him and tell him you did it if you didn't do it. Make sure everything that, be honest and own up, because you're not, what are you gonna do, kick his ass?
yeah. And then he's got a bunch of freaking meteors at his side. It's like, AP and Danelle and some other guys who are gonna jump in and hammer you too. So, but yeah.
Then a couple year workup, and then how deployment?
Yeah, did a deployment, went to Iraq, got after it with Delta Platoon. We had a good pump, like that whole deployment was just all vampire ops. So we were doing DAs, so we were sleeping through the daytime and then going out at night. And yeah, man, that was a good time, man. Got to get after it, and
I was always a big fan of doing, there's a big difference between working at night and doing presence patrols or driving in the day.
Yeah. 100%.
So getting to Iraq, though, you had to be just ready for that. Like, it's on now. I'm ready.
Oh, yeah. And the cool thing was, I left out a lot, but I got to do the human side of things as well. So I got to kind of live best of both worlds, because I went to I don't know what they call it now, but we used to call it ASO back in the day. So
yes.
I went to those courses and the TSO courses and all that stuff. So, I was like, running sources and, having meetings and meeting with sheikhs and building intelligence packages and doing all that kind of stuff in the daytime, going out with my civilian clothes and collared shirt and,
Wait, going out where?
To meets, to doing meets.
Oh, good. Yeah. The human intelligence side too was there's a lot of work in there too. In my personal experiences, I, like an idiot, I would just take their word for it. But then the whole, you got to get multiple sources, and who's doing, why is he telling me this about him? Is that like 100-year-old family feud they're having, or what's,
it was real deep, because we were working with on that deployment, like we were working with DIA as well, so it was really, really cool to be able to see that side of things, the intelligence side of things, and see how stuff comes together, to see, because I had to brief like freaking battle space commanders and send the writing side of things is how I ended up getting into writing, now, but more so, but write these long detailed reports that would go up to, different agencies and then would go up the chain of command, and then see how those reports, once vetted with other, trying to be as vague as possible, not get us in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to say too much either.
Yeah, once vetted against other information, with tops. So, I got to kind of live best of both worlds, doing the human side of things and
then going out.
And then going out.
Did you think you learned how to write doing that, or did you discover you knew how to write doing that?
I know we jumped through a lot, but when I was a kid, my mom would make us write. So my mom would make us read New York Times articles and books and write reports. And because my mom was of the mindset that if you can write, you'll have a job anywhere.
That is brilliant. I've always said that if you can communicate with someone will want to hire you.
Exactly. And so I already had that foundation. So fast forward to when we were getting ready to go on my first deployment, our OIC was like, "Hey, who wants to go to human school? Who wants to go to ASO?" And no one wanted to go because the stories where if you go, then you're going to be doing a lot of writing, and when you're when you're back you're going to be writing, and no one wants to do that. Even the course, you got to do a lot of writing in the course. And, my hand went straight up in the air. I was just like, yo, I want to do this. So the writing was already there. And then fast forward to when I got overseas, I already kind of had the foundation, and then that just kind of grew and developed from there. And then, ended up doing another pump and which was well, be careful. I don't even want to say how it was, but it was like a human heavy op. It was a national level tasker. And so we were doing a lot of cool stuff there, working with, guys that you were with for a long period of time. And then, got to do another pump. So it was like the human side of things really opened up the world for me as an operator, but then also prepared me for what I do today,
I remember dudes saying that too with the ASO course. The one drawback was you're going to be writing a lot. I remember people saying that. It's like, all right. Yeah. And I think I was at the mindset too at times, like, look, I don't want to write. I want to carry a sledgehammer. That's it. But not so. So you did 3 deployments with SEAL Team 3.
3 pumps, yeah.
And then time to get out. And this is the part I love it. I hope I'm not paraphrasing. But like, I'm a big believer that you can make a plan, then God laughs at you, because somehow Michael Bay got in touch with you out of the Navy, right? But I love that because you said it. Your mom would take you to the movie like once a month, and you see The Rock directed by Michael Bay. You see Bad Boys directed by Michael Bay, and all of a sudden Michael Bay is now looking for you. How did that meeting work?
Yeah, I was in grad school, getting my master's in organizational strategy, business, and I was at my desk. This very desk right here, this very computer right here, writing papers, and then my phone rings, and on the other end of the line is a woman who worked for Bay, and she was looking for a guy with my background to work on Transformers, and I was like, as soon as she said that, I was like, you mean Michael Bay? She was like, yeah. I was like, because I was like, I gotta tell this dude that his first 2 films, Bad Boys and The Rock, those are the films that really inspired me to do what I ended up doing, going into special operations, and finding my way. And so, it was super surreal. And she told me to send her some pictures. I sent her some pictures, and then the very next day, where am I? I'm on a movie set in the desert of California with Michael Bay, and that first movie opened up a lot of doors for me. It was supposed to be one day that turned into 3 weeks turned into 6 months, and I was on that movie for a long time. And then, as I said, I got a lot of other jobs from that as a consultant, and then worked with Michael Bay on 2 more films, 6 Underground, and then Ambulance, and then really started seeing that, man, like, I can contribute more than just being a consultant, on a film. I don't want to just be a consultant, because I would be in these meetings with producers and writers, and I would just hear how they're crafting a story, and I would just see that this is where it is. This is where the money is. This is where it all starts, and kind of like with the human thing, it's like, this is how it starts. This is where it comes from. And I want to really be a part of that. And that's how my career began to progress.
That's I just love how it all kind of comes back around to it. And then so the movie was Transformers, but then your autobiography is called Transformed, and that just, again, it's all, I mean, you're obviously doing a lot of work, but it's writing itself. That's badass.
Yeah.
And so and then now what you've done, a lot of movies, a lot of TV. The one I want to see that just came out is Plane. I literally just saw the trailer for that.
Yeah.
That came out in January, right?
Yeah, it came out in January. That was a fun one to work on. We shot that down in Puerto Rico for 2 months, and that was a fun one, man.
I was just trying to research tonight, and I'd heard about it, but then I saw it. I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah. And then same producers of that film are producing a film that I'm directing this summer. Well, I'm supposed to be directing this summer, depending on how far the strike goes. But
right.
Directing a human trafficking action thriller that actually started out as a short film called The Unexpected, which is on YouTube now. But the sequel to that short film, which is going to be a feature film, I wrote the script last year, I want to say, and after connecting with the producers of The Plane, they read the script, loved it. They were like, let's get behind it. So Gerard Butler, who's in The Plane, has seen the film as well. And then I'll be directing that one.
Oh, wow. So I mean so there's writing, directing, producing, acting.
No acting. No, I tell people all the time, the only reason why I did the acting was to learn how to be a filmmaker, because I wanted to reverse engineer it, and so, acting for me has gotten me on sets. It's helped build relationships with people in the business. Case in point, I acted in Plane, and I met the producers, and, they were like, hey, we want to get behind a movie you're directing. And so, acting has always been for me my film school, because I never had the chance to go to film school, and frankly, I don't have the time. I didn't have the time to go to film school. So movie sets and TV sets have been my film school.
That's learning on the job, OJT. You know what I want to ask? So you have a bachelor's in organizational leadership and a master's in strategic leadership. Do you think that you would learn more from doing that, getting a master's, or from leading people like in places like combat and training for combat?
Oh, you know what? When I was in school, the papers and everything was easy because I already did some of that stuff. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, I was in the military and, in the teams, and I had to apply strategies. I had to lead strategically. I had to be able to organize and do certain things. So when I got to school and I would get these assignments, I was like, it was just so easy for me to write papers, because all I had to do was essentially pull from real life experiences.
Stuff that I've seen, right?
Kind of transpose those into a paper. So I feel like there's more experience comes from actually doing the job, especially doing a job at the level that we had to do the job.
Right.
Just going to school and getting the paper, and then, say, hey, I got the paper, I got my master's. But, I didn't think it was necessary, for me to go to school and do all of those things and get the master's and all that. Because of the experience I had, I just went and did it just so I could say it's done, because a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean that's still very, very important. Getting a master's in that is that's badass too. But I found too, going from the military to the private sector, a lot of people would rather hire some of these special operators and just teach them how to do the job, because they have this. So a lot of these leadership traits and team building traits and stress management traits that they don't even realize they have, but they have it because of the experience.
100%. And even to this day, I work with big companies. I just did a big event with Sanofi, which is a pharmaceutical company, where it was just me and 20 of the executive leaders and the vice presidents of the company. And essentially, taking the majority of the principles not learned from school, but the majority of the principles learned from the battle space, and not just the teams, but also my time with the Marines, and taking those experiences and translating them into the business sector and what that particular company does. So I still do that to this day when there's time.
So speaking of writing, I got to bring this up in closing. Your new project, your new book called Chameleon.
Yep.
It is it's a thriller. Can you it's coming out in July?
Yep. So new book, Chameleon, is action thriller, espionage thriller. There's a chapter in my book called Transform, called Chameleon. And, that was kind of an inspiration for the book. I wanted to create a protagonist that had somewhat of a similar background as me, but still keeping it grounded in reality, but telling a cool action-packed story with heart, So that's what Chameleon is. It's based off of a bunch of programs. So it's actually called Chameleon, a black box thriller, because within black box, you have these different programs, Chameleon being one of them, which are people who can whatever character you need to become at the dime. Then you have ghosts, who are people that can get in and out of places like a ghost. And then you have win agents, which are are the vehicle experts. And then you have aberration agents, which are a combination of chameleons and ghosts, but they go into deep cover for up to a decade. And so I just created this big world and put it in a book. And book one is that. For people who love Transform, they're gonna love this even more.
That's badass, man. You're doing everything. That's so cool. And again, like we said at the beginning, one of the littlest decisions you make in life can turn into everything. And that's cool. I'm proud of you, man. You're just killing it.
Brother, I'm proud of you too, brother, man. Like, it's so cool, man. We connected at the Army and Navy game 2 years ago.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. And then we're gonna do a Yankees game very, very soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming on. Great talking with you.
Same. Thank you for having me on, brother.
Wow, what an incredible story. Thank you again, Remi, for joining us today. And remember, everybody, stay humble, learn from the past, learn how to write, and you're never out of the fight.